Good evening. I am Anitra Steele, the chair of the Forums Committee. Welcome to our forum for House Districts 12, 13, and 14. These districts are all in Platte County. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties. This forum will be recorded and will be available on the League's website, lwvkc.org, and on YouTube. The League of Women Voters is a trusted grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties, we are directly involved with sharing the important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like for you to know the other League members volunteering with me. Elizabeth Darr is the timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Donna Hauk. The public has sent in the questions via the League's website, lwvkc.org. Tonight, we are very happy to welcome our moderator, former City Council Representative and Mayor Pro Tem, Joanne Collins. Welcome, Joanne, and take her away.
Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, with counties included. Thank you. I'm delighted to join you for the Candidates Forum for the House Districts 12, 13, and 14 in Platte County. Tonight, we'll hear from the candidates running for the opportunity to represent their districts' voters in Platte County. The Missouri state representatives and senators work alongside the governor to create laws and establish a state budget. Responsibilities include passing bills on public policy matters, setting levels for state spending, raising and lowering taxes, and voting to uphold or override gubernatorial vetoes. State representatives are limited to 4 two-year terms. State senators are limited to 2 four-year terms. Forums last approximately 90 minutes. I'll ask each candidate the same question, selected from those submitted by the public. The order of candidates' responses have been determined by random rotation. Each candidate will be given 90 seconds to respond to each question and 2 minutes for a closing statement. All of the candidates running for these districts have been invited. We welcome the candidates willing and participating in tonight's forum. Candidates, please answer the questions asked and stick to the topic. There will be no rebuttals, but you may go back to an issue during your 2-minute closing remarks. Let us begin. Cheryl, come on. First question will go to Andrea Denning. Please introduce yourself, tell us your education and background, and most importantly, what are your top 3 priorities in this race? Andrea?
Hello. Hi, I'm Andrea Denning. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and our wonderful moderator, Joanne Collins, for being here and having this event this evening. I am a Democrat running for Missouri House District 13, which is northern Platte County and the eastern part of Buchanan County. So it's kind of a vast area. I am the mother of 2 grown boys who my husband and I raised in Platte City. They graduated from Platte County. I'm a 6th generation Missourian, born and raised in Kansas City. I went to Kansas City Public School through 7th grade and graduated from Pembroke Hill. I attended the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg and UMKC. I am now a small business owner in Platte City. I create and restore stained glass windows and teach classes in an effort to educate the public on the continued need for artists in my field. And I've been in business over 20 years. I'm running to improve the lives of my Platte County and Buchanan County neighbors by listening to their needs, thereby giving them a voice in Jeff City. My particular interests are women's health care, public money, staying in public schools, and as a small business owner, the vitality of small business.
Next question is to Jamie Johnson. Please introduce yourself. Tell us your education and background, and most importantly, what are your top 3 priorities in this race?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters, Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte for inviting me. I look forward to speaking with the community in every instance that I'm invited. My name is Representative Jamie Johnson. I am currently the state representative for Missouri House District 12. I am a mother of 3, product of public education. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. I came to the Kansas City area as a result of Hurricane Katrina. Have lived almost 20 years here. One more year, it'll be 20 years. My personal experiences are a large influence of my passion for representing this community. Before entering politics, I worked in human resources. I am a huge advocate for public schools, also for small businesses. We have several economic development and small business opportunities happening in District 12, and I'm excited about those. And then also autonomous healthcare, giving people the freedom to choose for themselves, for their families, what the best course of action is for their health, for their well-being, for their family, making sure that that is their right. And then I have a bachelor's degree in urban planning and design from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and a master's degree in organizational development psychology from Avila University.
Thank you. Our third candidate, Ashley On. Please introduce yourself. Tell us your education and background, and most importantly, what are your top 3 priorities in this race?
Well, good evening, and thank you for having us this evening. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak with folks and answer some questions and share more about who I am and why I'm running for re-election. So my name is Ashley Ani. I'm the state representative in House District 14, which is in Platte County. I am so proud to represent this district. I've been doing this job for 4 years, and I'm running for re-election to hopefully do it for another 2. My background is in marketing, and before running for office for the first time in 2020, I was a small business owner, and I brought with me to the legislature the perspective of someone who's owned a small business in Missouri, someone who has had all sorts of experiences, whether it's been overinsured and underinsured, whether it's been trying to navigate the moving into and out of the state process, all sorts of bureaucratic hurdles that folks go through just as a resident of this state. And so running for office, one of the reasons I ran is because I just wanted to make government a little bit easier for folks. So I'm also a member of Moms Demand Action and a gun owner. So, you know, one of the things that I'm really proud of is working down the center because I represent a district that is truly in the middle. And I really like to bring Northland values down to Jefferson City. Some of the ways I do that are by supporting military families, making sure that we are forward focused in terms of technology, and of course, supporting our public education here in Platte.
Thank you, Ashley. Second question. Jamie Johnson. In 1992, riverboat gambling was approved by Missouri voters, partly because tax monies would not go to support schools. We now know it is instead of state funds rather than in addition to state funds. Amendment 2, which will be on the November ballot, asks voters to support sports betting with the taxes generated going to support education. Will these taxes be used the same way or be in addition to support from the general fund? Our roads, I'm sorry. Jamie,
Yes,
did you get the question?
I did get the question.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I do believe sports betting presents a huge opportunity for Missouri to generate significant revenue, just as states around us have already done. However, I'm not sure that this is the specific vehicle for that opportunity. Uh, I believe it is not the best deal that we could get, as the legislature has had an opportunity to pass sports betting in years before, and our Republican colleagues in the House could not figure out what their priorities were in order to make sure that that got done in a way that would best benefit the state of Missouri and the public school systems that we would like to see the revenues go to. This bill does not specifically say public education as the source or the location, I guess the destination for the revenues, and we're not sure that we will even see revenue from this amendment. It is likely to pass, I hear. So it is important to me that those funds are used responsibly. I do believe that the revenue, if any, is generated, should be allocated to public education in addition to the funds that we allocate from the state budget.
Andrea? In
Yes,
1992, riverboat gambling was approved by Missouri voters partly because of the monies would be in support of schools. We now know it is instead of state funds rather than in addition to state funds. Amendment 2, which will be on the November ballot, asks voters to support sports betting with the taxes generated going to support education, quote unquote. Will these taxes be used the same way or be in addition to support from the general fund? Andrea?
on the sports betting issue, the wording is unclear. So that is a difficult issue. I will not be voting for it. The way it's worded, the 10% wagering tax on revenues to be appropriated for education after expenses. So that's kind of the stickler. So what are the expenses? How much are those going to be? And what happens to the budgeting for the schools if this is indeed the only funding they're going to receive? How will they be able to budget for an unknown amount of money incoming? So I have concerns about it. It's great that they're putting aside money for compulsive gamblers for care, but it's not a clear issue to me, and I don't think it's responsible to vote for something that is unclear.
Okay, thank you. Ashley Ane? In 1992, riverboat gambling was approved by Missouri voters partly because tax monies would be in support of schools. We now know it instead of state funds rather than in addition to state funds. Which Amendment 2, which will be on the November ballot, asks voters to support sports betting with the taxes generated going to support quote unquote education. Will these taxes be used the same way to be in addition to support for the general funds?
So I want to legalize sports betting in Missouri. I think it's absurd that the legislature hasn't done it yet because every single state that borders us has sports betting. So it's not lost on me that, especially in a county that borders Kansas, that people all over Platte County are driving across the state line, placing bets and giving that revenue to Kansas. That is disappointing to me. And I also think it's absurd that we would spend any kind of state resources on prosecuting or even jailing someone for the offense of sports gambling. That said, I just don't think that setting a tax rate in the Constitution is good policy. I think that's bad policy. I don't think we should be setting something like a tax rate in our Constitution because it's so unchangeable. Can it be changed? Yes. Is it easy to change? Absolutely not. I believe that tax rates should be put in statute rather than in the Constitution. I also believe that the 10% tax rate is too low. And when we've been discussing this in the legislature, we have talked about a 15 or 20% rate, but a 10% rate just seems too low. It's unclear that it would actually go to public education. It's unclear how much would go. The amendment itself, as it's worded, says the revenues could be between 0 and 20 million, but it could also be 0.
Thank you, Ashley. Third question is going to Ashley, Ani. Our roads and bridges are in disrepair. Would you support an increase in the gas tax to improve this infrastructure? Or our current tax is among the lowest in the country? Ashley?
So the Missouri legislature passed an increase to the gas tax in 2021. The only conversation that I'm aware of in the legislature around the gas tax is extremists on the far right trying to repeal that gas tax, which would set us back even further in terms of our infrastructure in this state. So what I would say is I actually don't believe that increasing the gas tax is something that is even on the table right now. What is important to note, though, is that we do need to figure out ways to continue investing in our infrastructure and making sure that our roads and bridges are safe for folks across the state. I do not think, though, that another increase in the gas tax at this point is the solution to that problem.
Thank you. Same question, Jamie Johnson. Our roads and bridges are in disrepair. Would you support an increase in the gas tax to improve this infrastructure? Or as our current tax is among the lowest in the country?
Yes. As Representative Ani said, I'm not sure that's a proposal that is being considered. However, what I would not support an increase in the gas tax. I would, however, I do support our colleagues in the House have proposed and have pushed for the last 2 years that I've been in the legislature a cut in corporate taxes. I do not support a cut in corporate taxes. I do believe that I think there was a famous Republican once that said taxes are the price we pay to live in a civilized society. I do believe that our government should not be wastefully spending taxpayers' money. We should be very careful and be good stewards of the resources of this state and the funds that are entrusted to us through taxes. I would not support an increase in the gas tax, but I also do not support cutting the corporate taxes down to 0 as our Republicans colleagues have proposed. I think that the money we collect from taxes in this state, and we've seen a decrease in those year-over-year revenues from taxes. We have an opportunity to invest those monies in this state in infrastructure, in public schools, in things that will provide a return on investment for the state of Missouri. And we have not done that well. We have not been good stewards of taxpayer, whether it's federal or state money. And I think we need to do better.
Thank you. Next question, or the same question, is going to Andrea Denning. Our roads and bridges are in disrepair. Would you support an increase in the gas tax to improve this infrastructure? Or as our current tax is among the lowest in the country? Andrea?
Not at this time. As the ladies before me said, there should be help with the infrastructure. We did receive money from federal government to get this going. But if there is a better way, a creative way to find in the budget to help with roads and bridges, we should do that. There are alternatives out there, and I don't believe that taxation right now is a good plan.
Thank you. Fourth question. Going to Jamie Johnson. Missouri is one of 26 states which allows citizens to amend the Constitution by initiative petition. Currently, an initiative petition will pass with a simple majority vote after a sufficient number of supporting signatures have been gathered. Efforts in the legislature to raise the threshold fell short this year. Would you support making it more difficult to change the Constitution through our existing petition process? Why and why not?
So I see the initiative petition as a tool for citizens to directly influence their government when and if, and as has been demonstrated in the last couple of years, when their representatives are not effective in carrying out the will of the people. I do think there is room for procedural improvement and maybe a bit more transparency and efficiency, but I do not believe or support making it more difficult to add things to the Constitution. I mean, I would love to see folks vote for their representatives based on, and the government not deciding who has power and who doesn't have power. I think that the last couple years of what we've seen with the what they call IP reform, what I call IP restrictions, are the way for the government to decide who has power and who does not have power. I do not support that. I don't want to see that. I give my hats off to the Senate Democrats who filibustered to stop it. That process has been in place since 1900, and before this year, there've only been 95 initiatives that have appeared on the ballot in the state of Missouri. I would love to see a little bit more transparency and efficiency, but I do not want to change that system to make it more difficult.
Thank you. Ashley Ane. Missouri is one of 26 states which allows citizens to amend the Constitution by initiative petition. Currently, an initiative petition will pass with a simple majority vote after a sufficient number of supporting signatures have been gathered. Effort in the legislature to raise the threshold fell short this year. Would you support making it more difficult to change the Constitution through our existing petition process? Why and why not?
Well, I am firmly against changing Missouri's initiative petition process. We have such an incredible process by which our citizens get to have a strong voice in the direction that their state is heading. Things that we have done through the initiative petition process recently in Missouri include voting down right to work, expanding Medicaid, legalizing medical and recreational marijuana. There are so many things that we have done as citizens, because our legislature wasn't doing it on our behalf. So I'd like to quote Governor Ashcroft, a Republican from 1992, when he defended the initiative petition process. Quote, "It is through the initiative petition process that those who have no influence with elected representatives may take their cause directly to the people. The General Assembly should be reluctant, therefore, to enact legislation which places any impediments on the initiative power which are inconsistent with the reservation found in the Constitution."
Very
I
informative.
agree.
Thank you. Fifth question, Andrea Denning. We live in a changing world. How should Missouri elementary and secondary curricula be changed to prepare our students to function in this world? Andrea?
Change the curriculum. May I have you repeat that?
Yes, you may. We live in a changing world. How should Missouri elementary and secondary curricula be changed to prepare our students to function in this world?
Well, as the world is changing, much more technology is available to kids. When I was in school, computers were just barely coming out into the junior high school. It took a long time for us to understand that as the older generation now. Times change, education needs to change with it. Our kids have got to learn what is happening in the world and how to deal with that. If there are new areas coming out in the world like AI, we need to have our children learn about it. It will adapt to what is happening in the world. So just keeping up with the times is kind of the biggest part. Specifics I don't have right now, but public schools have always and should always keep up with technology.
Thank you. Jamie Johnson, same question. We live in a changing world. How should Missouri elementary and secondary curricula be changed to prepare our students to function in this world?
Absolutely. I think when the education system started in this country, it was basically a glorified babysitting service where farmers would, the kids needed something to do while folks were in the field and tending the farm. Obviously, we've come a long way since then, but I think there are several areas in which our curriculum needs to update for a changing society. One of those things is global intelligence. We live in a world where kids have access to information around the world almost 24/7. If as a mom, I don't make my 13-year-old go to bed, he's on the internet until, I strong arm him into the shower and into the bed to get ready for the next day. I think in that global intelligence, we also need to look at diversity. We have areas of this country that are really homogenized. And when you go out into the workforce, that homogeneity is not present. There is a diversity of people and ideas and cultures and understanding. So I think we need to expand the curriculum to include that diversity that we see in the world on a daily basis. Obviously, innovation and technology, as Andrea alluded to earlier, we need to keep up with the times, making sure that we make sure that the kids know what's out there, but also media literacy. And I'll wrap up my point on that. We need to ensure that kids understand what they're looking at and how the sources of information that they have, whether or not they are valid or not.
Thank you. Thank you. Same question to Ashley on it. We live in a changing world. How should Missouri elementary and secondary curricula be changed to prepare our students to function in this world?
Well, I completely agree with Representative Johnson that media literacy is a huge piece of what we need to be focusing on for kids. They are bombarded with information all the time, and it is so important to teach young folks how to interact with what they're seeing on the internet, how to interact with what they're seeing on social media, ads that they're served, videos they see. Is it real? Is it AI? These are all so important. And the younger we work this into the curriculum, the more prepared our young people will be to face all the challenges that they're going to face. And these are going to be challenges that we can't even imagine yet. Which brings me to the other point, which is that we need to be helping kids prepare for the jobs of the future, which means being really nimble in our curriculum and making sure that we're shifting with the times and focusing on the things that are going to make our kids successful when they graduate and beyond.
Thank you. Next question, Andrea Denning. Why do you support or oppose Proposition A, which would guarantee paid sick leave and a gradual raise of the minimum wage to $15 from the Missouri's current minimum wage of $12.30? Andrea?
Because it's closer to a living wage. It is not a living wage, but it is closer. And I am a small business owner. I am also a human trying to live in the world. So we have to be able to put a roof over our heads. We have to have a car to drive to the grocery store. We have to be able to buy groceries. There's things we have to do, and that costs money. And as a small business owner in Missouri, I am totally for raising minimum wage. When I started working many years ago, I made $5 an hour at the best job I ever had at the downtown airport. But it wasn't a whole lot. So I had to have 2 other jobs to live out on my own. It was difficult. So it's not enough, but it needs to be raised. I will not go out of business by paying people more. I will not suffer because I care about them.
Thank you, Ashley. Going to Jamie Johnson with the same question. Why do you support or oppose Proposition A, which would guarantee paid sick leave and a gradual raise in the minimum wage to $15 from the Missouri's current minimum wage of $12.30?
Yes, absolutely. As Andrea said, I think that it is a step in the right direction in terms of getting people to a quality of life that is one not necessarily without challenges, but one that they can sustain. It is just life sustaining, or closer to life sustaining. One of the reasons I support it is with my HR background, and during the pandemic, I've seen just how close paycheck to paycheck folks are. I can tell you that there were so many horrific stories of folks having to stay home because they got COVID and we weren't necessarily paying a full wage or paying after they had exhausted their sick leave. And there were, people who lost their house, who lost their apartment. So many stories of people getting evicted from their apartments, and then we end up with more homelessness, and now we have another problem to deal with. Guaranteeing people paid sick leave means 2 things. They are not coming to work ill, thus possibly spreading whatever they have, making other people stay home. And they are able to take that time and care for themselves and their well-being, get better, and come back fully ready to do work.
Thank you. Next question, Andrea Denning. Missouri has the 5th highest gun death rate in the country, according to.
Do I get a chance to answer that question as well?
Yes. I'm sorry, Jamie, did I call you?
No. Yes, you called me, Ashley. Didn't answer that question.
We've had a little problem with the randoms. So where are you? Who's next?
I'm next for the,
for
the Prop A question,
I
please.
agree with you, Ashley. You asked him, the question is, why do you support or oppose Proposition A, which would guarantee paid sick leave and a gradual raise in the minimum wage to $15 from the Missouri current minimum wage of $12.30? Thank you, Ms.
Well,
Ashley.
I thank you. I really support this proposition, and it's for all the reasons that have already been laid out. I am also a small business owner, and I understand what it is to look at the folks who are working for you and say, I want to help you be successful. And I really think that not only is it wildly imperative that we make sure that folks in our state have the dignity of earning a living wage, but making sure they're also not one sick kid away from not being able to pay their bills or losing their job. That's absurd. And it's terrible for our economy too. And it's hard on business owners to have that kind of turnover. So for all those reasons, we have got to vote yes on Prop A and get one step closer to making sure that workers in the state have those dignities.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you for keeping your moderator on in random. 7th question, and it will start with Andrea Denning. Missouri has the fifth highest gun death rate in the country. And according to a recent article in the Kansas City Star, more than half of these deaths are suicides. As a member of the legislature, what gun laws would you support? Andrea?
I support gun registration is an absolute. If a gun is out of my control, and I'm a gun owner, imagine that, a Democrat. It needs to be reported as stolen immediately. I believe there has to be mandatory training. I'm not sure about how that enforcement would work, but it is necessary. Secure storage, of course. And I also think the age minimum should be increased. It is up to parents right now to handle their children's maturity as far as their gun ownership. If they could drive a car and they can vote at 18, if they could vote at 18, but they can own a gun much earlier, that does not make much sense to me. This is a lethal weapon if used in an improper way, and there needs to be more restrictions on it. Hunting and target shooting is wonderful. I do it myself. It's a lot of fun, but it's a very dangerous weapon.
Thank you. Next, the same question, Ashley. The Missouri has the fifth highest gun death rate in the country, according to the recent article in the Kansas City Star. More than half of these deaths are suicides. As a member of the legislature, what gun laws would you support?
So I have previously filed two pieces of legislation that I'm really passionate about. One would repeal constitutional carry in our state, which allows folks to conceal carry without a permit. We have that's what the current law is, and I simply, as a gun owner, I believe that it's really important that if you decide to take on the responsibility of owning and handling and carrying a gun, that you can prove that you can handle that responsibility. And you can do that by getting a concealed carry license. Simple as that. The other piece of legislation that myself and several of my colleagues filed last year after the Union Station shooting at the Chiefs Parade was to allow local municipalities to make their own common sense gun policies that work for those localities. So when we hear folks in the legislature constantly talk about how one size fits all doesn't work for gun laws, which is why they can't pass any of our ideas about common sense gun legislation. I would like for the opportunity to say, okay, well, this would work better in St. Louis City, or this would work better in Kansas City than it would in Stone County, for instance, right? So we've got to make sure that we give local municipalities the ability to speak up for themselves in this way. Also, red flag laws are a huge part of that issue, especially when it comes to suicide.
Same question, Jamie Johnson. Missouri has the fifth highest gun death rate in the country, and according to a recent article in the Kansas City Star, more than half of these deaths are suicides. As a member of the legislature, what gun laws would you support?
I echo Representative Ani's sentiment in local control. I did file a bill this last session as well that basically would do a carve out for Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield, and some other municipalities within and counties as a whole as well, to enact their own local control over firearm safety. We cannot legislate St. Louis like we do, Pulaski County. We cannot legislate Platte County like we do, Louisiana, Missouri. It's just not the same communities. It's not the same culture. It's not the same understanding of firearms, how they work, the safety. I grew up in Louisiana, sportsman's paradise, all kinds of guns, all kinds of hunting. We hunt everything from alligators to neutral rats. Look it up. But we have to be able to legislate for local municipalities. We also need to address the extreme risk protection orders, red flag laws that Representative Arnie referred to earlier. Families and friends should be able to say to law enforcement, something is wrong with my loved one. I would like for you to temporarily remove their possession of their firearm so we could get them some help. I think that those are the laws that I support.
Thank you, Jamie. The next question will start with you, Jamie Johnson, this time. There are ballot measures on the November ballot for two are constitutional amendments sponsored by the legislature. The next two questions concern these amendments. Amendment 6 would impose a $3 fee in every circuit court criminal case, which would go towards funding retirement benefits for sheriffs and other court personnel. In 2021, the Supreme Court rejected this approach as unconstitutional, saying that those fees are not reasonably related to the administration of justice. What's your position on Amendment 6, Ms. Jamie?
Yeah. I am not in favor of Amendment 6. I think that those types of amendments require careful consideration. While it is important to me that the pension funds of our sheriffs and other court personnel are adequately funded, we have to ensure that those fees do not become a barrier to justice, as our Supreme Court has said, particularly for low-income individuals and for marginalized communities. It has to be a fair balance, and I think those funds should come from another revenue source.
Ashley, Nate? Amendment 6 would impose a $3 fee in every circuit court criminal case, which would go toward funding retirement benefits for sheriffs and other court personnel. In 1921, the Supreme Court rejected this approach as unconstitutional, saying that those fees are not reasonably related to the administration of justice. What's your position on Amendment 6?
So I am in support of Amendment 6 hesitantly. It is, I don't like using our Constitution this way, but the truth is that in 1983, this was enacted. It was renewed again in 1997. 30 years later, someone challenged the constitutionality of it, and the Supreme Court made their ruling. I don't disagree with the Supreme Court. However, for 30 years, the retirement of many Missourians has depended on this fee. These are folks, these are public servants who have served in our criminal justice systems. And I'm just not willing to mess with their pension revenue source at this point. It's been very clear that there has been no other solution to making sure that these pensions stay solvent. And as frustrating as it is to do this, not only in the Constitution, but to create this, what could be considered or turned into an unfortunate incentive structure, I really do believe that at this point, this is the best option.
Thank you. Andrea Denny. Amendment 6 would impose a $3 fee in every circuit court criminal case. What would go towards funding retirement benefits for sheriffs and other court personnel? In 1921, the Supreme Court rejected this approach as unconstitutional, saying that those fees are not reasonably related to the administration of justice. What is your position on Amendment 6? Andrea?
I don't know that it is unrelated, but I have concerns about the possible need to generate funds by officers who are out in the field, bringing in folks to collect those dollars. $3 is not much per court. So how would that actually make a dent in the pension funds of all these folks that they're trying to do? I have questions about it. So I'm not entirely certain if it's a good plan.
Thank you, Andrea. Next question. Ashley, we are Amendment 7 has also proposed by the legislature is a two-parter. It would forbid ranked choice voting, which is essentially a means of having an instant runoff in elections in which there are multiple candidates. It also states that only U.S. citizens would be allowed to vote, which is already the law in every state, including Missouri. What is your position on Amendment 7? Ashley?
So I am very against this amendment. I voted against it in the legislature. I spoke against it in the legislature. And it's really frustrating to me that it is on our ballot right now. In fact, I've actually filed a bill that would establish ranked choice voting in Missouri, because I genuinely believe that after 4 years in the legislature with a Republican supermajority, that ranked choice voting, having an instant runoff that way, would really encourage more moderate candidates and help us rid our legislature of the extremes that we keep seeing getting elected over and over again. And, you know, the other thing I would add is this ballot language is so incredibly disingenuous. It leads with that section that says only U.S. citizens can vote in Missouri, which, to be clear, is already the law. What we call that is ballot candy, which means they are hoping that folks read only that line and vote yes. I'm encouraging a no vote, though.
Thank you. Andrea Denning. Amendment 7, also proposed by the legislature, is a two-parter. It would forbid ranked choice voting, which is essentially a means of having an instant runoff in elections in which there are multiple candidates. It also states that only U.S. citizens would be allowed to vote, which is already the law in every state, including Missouri. What is your position on Amendment 7?
I also am against it. Just the fact that they're leading off with legality in voting. Illegal aliens they think are voting in elections, which is not happening. Ranked choice voting is a very interesting concept, and I believe it would help immensely. We have a very I'll use the word radical other side of the political spectrum in power right now, super majority at this point, and we need to change that however we can. There has to be, there should be more balance. So that is what I have to say.
Okay, Jamie Johnson, Amendment 7, also proposed by the legislature, is a two-parter. It would forbid ranked choice voting, which is essentially a means of having an instant runoff in elections in which there are multiple candidates. It also states that only U.S. citizens would be allowed to vote, which is already the law in every state, including Missouri. What's your position on Amendment 7? Jamie?
I am wholly and fully and wholeheartedly against this amendment, opposed to it. I grew up in Louisiana, where we have open primaries, where they are nonpartisan. Everybody who files for the primary is on the ballot, or everybody who files to run for office is on the primary ballot, regardless of their party. And then you may end up with 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans that end up in the general election. I think that is absolutely a way for politicians to have to bring down the rhetoric and tell folks what their actual priorities are, what their actual policy ideas are, as opposed to just speaking to one side. And then, you know, a great demonstration of that is our gubernatorial race this year, in which we've seen some of the most vile and offensive commercials in the primary for the Republican ticket. And then as soon as Lieutenant Governor Kehoe won the primary, all of that rhetoric came down because he now has to gain the votes of the other half of his electorate. And I think that the ranked choice voting would bring a lot of that rhetoric down to maybe a quiet simmer versus a raging boil. I also do not think there's been enough public discourse or examination of that option, and I am against banning any option that would improve or expand voter participation.
Thank you. Jamie Johnson, the next question. Do you support Amendment 3, the Right to Reproductive Freedom Initiative? Will you commit to upholding the will of the voters if it passes? Jamie?
Yes, absolutely. I am for Amendment 3. I will say I am personally pro-life for myself, but that is a decision that I have made for me and my family. And I don't feel like I have the right to tell anyone else how to make those decisions for their family. So I am for choice in the way that you have to do what's best for your family, for your health, for your situation, and according to what your healthcare professionals advise you to do. And for that reason, I am all in on Amendment 3, fully supportive of Amendment 3, and will uphold the will of the people when it is passed.
Thank you, Jamie. Andrea Denning, do you support Amendment 3, the Right to Reproductive Freedom Initiative? Will you commit to upholding the will of the voters if it passes?
Absolutely. I was 10 years old when Roe v. Wade was decided, and my parents were so happy. They worked very hard to make abortion safe because they experienced a time when it was not. My father actually cared for some folks who had difficulty with that. It is not a man's right to tell me what I could do with my body or my friend or my niece or anything. Between a woman and her doctor, if she so chooses. And it's an issue that I don't think has been thought through very well. I like to think about consequences to someone's decisions. So the effects that this may have if it were to fail, if the abortion ban is kept in place, I think the consequences would be horrendous, very drastic, and that is of great concern to me. Women are very important, and we need to be treated as such. And we cannot go back to a time when we were considered less than our male partners.
Thank you. The 11th question is, start with Ashley Ani. In addition, yes.
Can I answer that question too?
Oh, yes, you. That's why I had called your name. I'm sorry. Please do.
All right. Well,
You want me to read it again? I can read it for you. Do you
no
support?
worries, I got it.
Okay.
Yep, I got it. I'm good on Amendment 3. Full
Thank you.
Full support. Okay,
right.
so what I really want to say real quick though is it is so important that once again we uphold the will of the voters as a legislature, which is why it's so important that we vote for people who will uphold the will of the voters. I stood on the House floor and listened to a Republican colleague after Medicaid expansion was passed say that he was proud to vote against the will of the people because he believed, even though his district voted for Medicaid expansion, that they didn't know what they were voting for. And I think that that is so ridiculous and so frustrating. And it's also frustrating to hear from senators, the very senators who wrote our current extreme abortion ban, saying that they are ready to pre-file legislation to try to reinstate some level of a ban in this state after we pass Amendment 3, which we will. It's frustrating, and I'm genuinely concerned by those efforts, because I think that we are really in for it in Missouri as a legislative body in terms of the type of legislation and the amount of legislation we're going to see around the issue of abortion. But rest assured, if this doesn't pass, we will continue to see the loss of life and the devastation that an extreme abortion ban has had and is currently happening on Earth.
Thank you, Ashley. And I'm starting with you on the 11th question. In addition to the statewide ballot measures, Platte County voters will be asked to weigh in on a question regarding the imposition of a 1/4-cent sales tax in order to support mental health for youth under the age of 19, as well as crisis intervention and family support. Opponents of this measure say that providing mental health care is not the responsibility of local government. What are your views on this question?
Well, my views is I'm tired of every single person kicking the can down the road when it comes to issues that are actually affecting Missourians. What's happening in our communities is nothing short of devastating. We're seeing kids with serious mental health issues. We're seeing the need for mental health providers skyrocketing right now. There are so many challenges that young people go through, and the idea that we would reject a very small tax increase to make sure that our youth are being taken care of in that way is absolutely absurd to me, especially just a few months after the same people who are fighting against this were fighting for an increase, an even larger increase for a jail in our county. I think that that shows you where their priorities are. And I think it's very clear that there is a mental health problem, not only in our community, not only in our state, but in our country. We've got to do more to address it. The same people who are fighting against this will also tell you that guns aren't the problem, mental health is the problem. So put your money where your mouth is. That's what I say.
Thank you. Next person is, I can't read that. Andrea Denning. In addition to the statewide ballot measures, Platte County voters will be asked to weigh in on a question regarding the imposition of a 1/4-cent sales tax in order to support mental health for youth under the age of 19, as well as crisis intervention and family support. Opponents of this measure say that providing mental health care is not the responsibility of local government. What are your views on this question?
Well, whose responsibility is it? Mental health care is not affordable to the average family. It's often not covered in your health care plan. I have a child who was had problems in school from bullies. He needed help. We were able to send him to counseling, but that was just one case. I mean, we were able to do it, but it took a lot. That child needs support. There's so much going on in the world with social media, problems with kids being bullied on social media, if not in person. Republicans are often quick to say it's not the guns. We need more mental health because they're mentally unstable. Well, then fix it. So a 1/4-cent sales tax is nothing to help our children with problems that they have in society and online.
Thank you. Jamie Johnson. In addition to the statewide ballot measures, Platte County voters will be asked to weigh in on a question regarding the imposition of 1/4-cent sales tax in order to support mental health for youth under the age of 19, as well as crisis intervention and family support. Opponents of this measure say that providing mental health care is not the responsibility of local government. What are your views on this question?
My views are we're gonna pay to help or we're gonna pay to house. That is just as simple as that. So we're gonna pay to help these folks with whatever struggles they may be going through, these young people, or we're gonna pay to house them in the jail that we built with the $400 billion in Platte County. And maybe that's why they feel like we need a jail tax, because we're not paying attention to the mental health of our kids, who will then, but those same opponents also say that crime is a problem and that public safety is the number one thing that they could be doing is the number one thing that is their responsibility. Well, in this day and age, with the innovation of all the things, how do you address crime and public safety? It is easier to get a family help with their young person who may be addicted to drugs than to arrest that young person for breaking into someone's car or breaking into someone's house. It is easier and cheaper, by the way, to get that young person help with their mental health crisis than it would be to pay for the funerals of the kids that they shot, because they also had access to guns in that moment. We're going to pay to help or we're going to pay to house. We need to put our money where our priorities are.
Thank you. The last question that we have, number 12, starts with Andrea Deming. Before we get to our 2-minute closing statements, here is the last question from me. What is one question you wish I had asked, and how would you answer it?
One thing I think about is possibly asking, what might you do to address school shootings? And my thought is the possibility, and of course the representatives would need to weigh in on this. Our veterans who need support, I believe it would be handy, it would be nice to hire them as resource officers, giving them a chance at feeling needed, being a voice of understanding, understanding gun usage, if that was ever the case, and being someone that kids can look up to and discuss military with kids that might be interested in going into. So that's something that we may consider, and because it's expensive for the schools to go through the resource officers funding and all that. So how can we utilize someone who has already got fantastic training and are needing connection?
Okay, thank you. Jamie?
I think one of the questions that I would have loved to talk more about is the lack of a government accountability that we have currently at the state level. We've seen headlines about childcare. We haven't been paying our childcare providers adequately. We're breaking or violating federal policy, federal regulations in the length of time it's taking to approve SNAP programs, food stamp benefits. We are rapidly and randomly and in excess, hundreds of thousands of kids are being kicked off Medicaid in this state because of the lack of an efficient and effective recertification process. We've seen all of these things that nobody's really talking about a whole lot because of the culture war issues that are the priority of the GOP and the current supermajority legislature, which affect very few people, which affect a whole lot of people, but they are private decisions that should be made between families and all of those things. So we are impending on folks' freedoms while we are not actually handling the business of the state and being efficient and effective at running our government. And I would have loved to talk about that a lot more.
Thank you. And Ashley?
So I think that my experience as a member of the super minority has been really interesting. And so I think one question I would love to have received is, what would your priority be if you weren't constantly on defense all the time as a member of the super minority? And what I would say is that my priority would be to make sure that um, folks that we start focusing on the things that actually bring us together. The pieces of legislation that when they come up on the floor, they get a majority of the room in support because they make sense. We're talking about bills like a child care tax credit that should have passed but didn't. And that would have done a ton to really solve the childcare crisis in our state. We're talking about pieces of legislation that make breast exams more accessible to folks. Just really common sense stuff. And I will say it has been a frustrating experience being on defense all the time, not being able to set the tone or set priorities. So, it'd be nice to make some progress as well.
Thank you. Those are all three thoughtful comments and questions that we have asked the League of Voters to consider next time, if they are available to us. Okay, candidates, it is time for your 2-minute closing remarks. I want to personally thank all of you for joining us. And in addition, we'd like to ask that you share the League's website with voters and encourage all citizens to show up on each question on election day, to show up on each election day and exercise their right to vote, remembering that their vote is their voice. Now our candidates' closing remarks, and we'll start with Andrea Denning. You may begin your closing remarks. 2 minutes.
All right, let's see if I can do that. So I am a lifetime Missourian, lifetime Kansas Cityan. I am a small business owner, so I deal with a lot of everyday problems in business. Love solving issues. My business is in stained glass, so there's a lot of restoration in stained glass, and there's a lot of need for it in Jefferson City. I remember when there was not a Republican majority in Jeff City. It was quite a while ago, but it can be handled. And I am willing and able to talk across the line, across to the other side, the other ideals. I am not on an extreme of the Democratic side. Ashley and I both mentioned that we are gun owners. Jamie's very familiar with guns. It's not an oddity. We are not monsters. We love our fellow Missourian and want to make a better place for all of us. And I would love to have the opportunity to do that. So AndreaForMissouri.com is my site. I would love to have your vote, and I appreciate you watching this evening.
Thank you. 2 minutes, Jamie Johnson.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for inviting me to this forum. This is actually the first forum that I've done in my almost 2 years of almost 3 years, I guess, of running and being the representative. But I want to just take a moment and say how much I love District 12 and Platte County as a whole, and the state of Missouri for that matter, and how much I have enjoyed representing, how much pride I take in being a good representative of the community that I live in. My neighbors are absolutely fabulous. This district is absolutely beautiful, and I am very, very proud to represent it. I often say on the House floor that Platte County is God's country, and it truly is. I am just I take pride in listening to all the voices of the community. I believe we are better together. And I think that, we can find joy and alignment, even talking with those who disagree with us. I look forward to hearing from my constituents regularly, even those who disagree with me. Um, I know that some of my constituents say I am the most responsive representative that they have. It's probably the ones that were on the, never mind. Um, that I'm the most responsive representative that they've had. That I will call them. I will call them from my personal cell phone number and say, how can I help? What's going on? But I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that Missouri is in a lot of trouble. There are a lot of issues that need to be fixed here, and they have nothing to do with gender or crime or those type of things. Those are symptoms, not the problem. We need to get to the root of actually representing our constituents and running the business of government so that we can provide the best quality of life we can to each and every Missourian. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jamie. And now, Ashley, 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you again for this opportunity. Like Jamie, this is my first forum because I've never had an opponent who's willing to join. And this is the first year the league has opened it up, regardless of whether your opponent joins. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for giving us this platform and this opportunity to share how we feel about these issues with our constituents. One of the reasons I ran for office is because I believe we need more transparency in government. And I genuinely believe that the least we can do as candidates and as elected officials is show up and let folks hear from us. I was raised in Kansas City by a Democrat and a Republican. And one thing I'm really proud of is that I represent a really purple district that looks a lot like the community I grew up in too, which was actually on the other side of the state line. Don't tell anybody. But I'm so proud to be from Kansas City. I'm so proud to have these Midwestern values. And I'm so proud that I grew up in a community and in a home where I was taught to live and love and experience life with folks who may not agree with me on everything. And, I've been out knocking doors for several months now. It's what I do every 2 years to win this race. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that when I go knock on someone's door, that my constituents will share with me the things that they're frustrated with, whether that's something I can control or not. They want me to hear about their challenges in the hopes that I can do something to make their life a little bit better. And that is such an incredible experience. It's such a humbling experience. I'm so grateful to the people of the 14th district who continue to put their faith in me, continue sending me down to Jefferson City to reflect your values. It has been the honor of a lifetime. And if you want to learn more about me or my positions, you can go to ashleyformissouri.com, all spelled out. Thanks again.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful, wonderful forum. I have learned a lot from all three of you. You have been very thoughtful and you have been very inclusive in giving your responses. And I really do appreciate that and thank you as candidates. Now I'm going to turn you over back to our League of Women Voter, Anitra. There she is.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Thank you, audience, for your interest in the November election. A recording of this forum is available on the League's website, lwvkc.org. Please take a minute to share our forums on your Facebook, Nextdoor, and other social media outlets. And remember, for voting and candidate information, visit lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you. Good night.